Okay? Before we start, when we're in an outdoor situation like this, we have kind of a split audience. If our ladies can be of any assistance to you, if you'd like a program, we've got ladies right here in the middle. If you'd raise your hand, they'll bring you a program. They can also assist you with the purchase of our recordings or sell you a sweatshirt. How does that sound?
No.
Keep warm. All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are the 1st Brigade Band, and we are so pleased to once again be invited to participate in your Independence Day celebration. Often when we visit a town, we focus on the citizens of the community that fought and sometimes died in defense of the Union cause. Today, we'll do a similar thing, but today, it's all about the band. The excellent Civil War database at the Wisconsin Veterans Museum in Madison has taken and preserved in a digitalized fashion the enlistment rolls of each town in this great state. We may have heard per capita, Wisconsin sent more men to fight than any other state in the Union. And by looking at the document, it is very clear that Columbus did its part. But there are 10 names that stood out as I studied it. The 10 men that enlisted as musicians. We have an intimate setting here, and because of that, you're going to be able to hear and meet several of our soloists. And on a national level, we'll be talking about one of the great bandmasters of all time. But today, let's dedicate this music to James Delhanty and John Downey. Let's hear the tunes that set Joseph Edwards and A.W. James' toes to tapping. In your mind's eye, see the scenes that John James, James McCabe, James McConnell, and William Page accompanied with their instruments. Allow us to follow in the footsteps of Philip Redfield and George Townley, all from Wisconsin, all from Columbus. The instruments you see in the hands of my friends are authentic. They saw action in the 1860s. They will tell you stories using the music of the era, and they have some extraordinary things to say. Most appropriately, we begin today's concert with the 4th of July Overture. Ladies and gentlemen, the 1st Brigade Band and its bandmaster, John Condon.
Thank you.
In the 1860s, the first Brigade Band originated from Broadhead Head, Wisconsin. Today we have our home in Watertown, Wisconsin. We've been there over 20 years now. We rehearse every Friday night, most of the year actually, and you're welcome there anytime. Not only do we have rehearsal facilities, we have a museum with the remainder of our collection there. But we like to bring our collection out to you. As I said before, these instruments are all well over 150 years old. They're still playing. We have to bring along a portable curator to go with our portable museum. So in that capacity, our bandmaster John Connon is going to tell you a little bit about why these horns look the way they do and why the front row is so shy.
We are talking about the instruments, not the players. Some of you got that. That's okay. Anyway, I can help you a little bit here. Hats off, people. You can get a little bit cooler. They can tell who's up front then, me or them. I would like to let you know that the instruments here are original antiques, as Miss Kate has said. All of them have come to us in various states of, shall we say, array to disarray. And there's a good chance that if you saw some of them, you wouldn't recognize them the way they are today. Anyway, the shapes and the changes that we notice are different in the E-flat military brass band versus contemporary B-flat brass, is that our top of the band is a soprano instrument. So if you would, the E-flat cornets, could you hold them all up, please? All of these nice little horns here represent the soprano of the entire band, and they would normally be a B-flat version in a concert band, which is our next bunch of people over here, the B-flat cornets. You can see they're getting a little bit bigger. So that's our soprano and the second soprano. Then you go to an alto horns, and then tenor horns, baritone horns, and finally bass over here. And to make things a little bit more confusing, there's an E-flat side of the band and a B-flat side of the band. So sometimes you hear melody splitting from one side to the other. Add to that interesting thing, in the middle we have woodwinds. We have two flute players and a piccolo player. They're made of real wood, and they have a simple system keys. The rest of us have 3 to 4 different rotors or valves and play very similarly. There we go. On top of that, with the brass, I want to let you know the configurations. First of all, a little bit different. Could we have the bell front people hold your instruments up? This is the normal configuration that we get when you look at a contemporary band. Any bell front instrument. There you go. Now, from bell front, let's try a fun one. Oh yeah, you got yours too. That's good. Let's see if we can do our, circular horns. Now those little horns in the middle are kind of rare, but these horns over here, they're the ones you could actually wear so that if you're on a horse, you're not going to drop them. If you look to the other instruments, our bell-up instruments, these look like baritones and tubas of modern day, don't they? And then finally, the ones that look kind of interesting this way, because you don't get to see their faces, they're called over the shoulder. And this is the configuration that is very significantly different in the Civil War. This is the only time you'll see over-the-shoulder instruments. On top of that, we have our percussion battery. They have original wood drums with rope tension and leather and calfskin heads, and then our potlet player, the cymbal player, Father Ferris, flashing Father Ferris. I could almost say it right. Now, to get on past that, we have some wonderful solos to show that. We're actually going to do something we haven't done, and that is give a solo in a soprano, an alto, a tenor, and a bass voice. So you're going to hear that today working from the bottom up. Miss Kate, would you introduce our first soloist?
I certainly would. We're going to start, as he said, at the bottom. We're going to be rocked in the cradle of the deep. The poem was written by Emma Hart Willard about 1832. Mrs. Willard was a very early women's rights activist and founded the first school for women's higher education. The tune itself is from around 1840 and is attributed to Joseph P. Knight, who was briefly a music instructor at the school in Vermont that was run by Mrs. Willard. Our first soloist here is Zach Jones, and he's going to be playing for you on his E-flat tuba, Rocked in the Cradle of the Deep. I hope you can tell the difference in the sound. The brass sound is just a little bit softer and more mellow in these softer instruments than the modern instruments. The 1860s had no shortage of sentimental ballads. Themes of home and family were common among the favorite songs adopted by the soldiers. Now, I have a great time researching the origins of our tunes, And a wonderful resource is actually the Library of Congress. And at the Library of Congress website, I was able to locate the cover to the original sheet music that was published in 1864 for this next song. Now the cover says, and it looks like this, the song was inspired by an incident at the Battle of Antietam. So your sheet music of the day would look like that. Now right under this information, and this made me laugh, I found something else. Apparently it was as common to write parodies of songs in the 1860s as it is in this century. And the parody to Mother Kissed Me in My Dreams is called Molly Guzzled the Ice Cream. I'm not kidding, folks. I got it from the Library of Congress. But here is William Offenbach on B-flat tenor to tell you the story of Mother Kissed Me in My Dreams. Believe me, if all those endearing young charms was written by the multi-talented Irish poet Thomas Moore, and he set his words to a traditional Irish air. His young wife had become extremely ill with smallpox and feared her looks had been so damaged by the scarring that she refused to leave her room. He wrote the poem to reassure her of his unwavering devotion to her, no matter what difficulties they may face. They were married for 41 years. On B-flat cornet, here is Mr. Bill Eddington. have the best members ever. I just want to let you know that Bill did 2 parades this morning and still able to make beautiful music like that. Thanks, Bill. What does the word quick step mean to music in the 19th century? Quick step is defined as brisk marching music for troops in a military parade. Hero's Quick Step was written in 1836 by Henry Schmidt and dedicated to the New York Light Guard and the Boston Light Infantry. Now, in your own mind, please try to imagine yourself marching down the street to the Hero's Quick Step. We now present Dr. Steve Kessler and his E-flat cornet. Today, we're going to present to you a profile of Mr. Lincoln's bandmaster, Francis Maria Scala. He took a sleepy and languishing little military band and turned it into a musical force that had no peer, the President's own, the United States Marine Band. In 1841, Francis Maria Scala was playing clarinet in an opera pit orchestra in Naples, Italy, when he was recruited to be a ship's bandmaster by the captain of the American frigate USS Brandywine. The 20-year-old Scala was a highly skilled musician trained in composition, opera, and mastery of the clarinet. The allure of music, pay, and world travel with the U.S. Navy seemed most attractive. While successful in his duties, he suffered from unending seasickness. Arriving in America, the Navy's most promising musician left the service seeking music employment and a more stable footing. After a brief time wandering through Northern Virginia, he enlisted in something called the United States Marine Band. Now, this small ensemble at that time had 1 flute, 1 French horn, 1 clarinet, 2 trombones, 1 snare drum, 1 bass drum, and 1 set of cymbals. Scala was quickly appointed fife major, essentially the group's leader. With lots of hard work, he built an ensemble of 35 musicians. He clearly demonstrated his talents for not only organization and conducting, but musical composition as well. Scala and the Marine Band would achieve their goal of national and musical recognition while serving the 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. The Union March was composed by Scala for Lincoln's inauguration, March 4th, 1861. Mrs. Lincoln called upon Scala to prepare special music for White House social functions. Scala obliged with a polka of his own and shrewdly dedicated it to the First Lady. It's called the Merry Polka. Scala's fame as a composer was spreading. He was courted by Cabinet Minister Salmon P. Chase to prepare special music for his daughter Kate's wedding to Rhode Island Governor William Sprague. He responded with a special dance composition he called Mrs. Sprague's Bridal Polka and Waltz. band became a fixture of wartime, morale-boosting, and patriotic wartime concerts. Now here is another one of his specialties. Composed at the request of Gideon Welles, Lincoln's Secretary of the Navy, is Scala's arrangement of Medley of Patriotic Airs, which proved to be a huge crowd pleaser with the Washington audiences. Frances Maria Scala served the President and the First Lady with the highest degree of dedication. Frances Maria Scala had one more duty to perform for Abraham Lincoln. It was his sad duty to lead the magnificent band that he built in one more formal presidential ceremony, the funeral for the President himself. There was no time to prepare one of his special compositions for the event. Scala was forced to draw on the composition of another. Somehow this seemed unimportant. Witnesses reported that the sense of mourning was palpable in every note. Here is that final musical presidential salute. United States Marine Band until 1871. He took his retirement in Charleston, South Carolina, and remained there until his death on April 18, 1903. The Marine Band journeyed to Charleston to play a final time for their beloved leader. Francis Maria Scala lies at rest in the Congressional Cemetery in Washington, D.C. Oh, one final observation. You have heard today how Francis Scala enriched the nation's foremost band with the music of every available genre of the day, and this included a certain melody from a French opera, one that would leave a far more lasting impression on the United States Marines than any from his native Italy. It was from Jacques Offenbach's Geneviève de Brabant, and it remains to this day the final selection of every United States Marine Band concert, Geneviève de Brabant. On the bottom of your program, it probably says something like, program subject to change at the whim of the bandmaster, and we're going to do so right now. One of the more pleasant duties of the bandsmen were the dances and concerts they held in towns that they passed through. These affairs were wonderful distractions, both for the populace and for the musicians. We're going to sample some of the pop tunes of the day. Silvery Showers is based on a melody by Irish composer Michael Balfe and was originally adapted by Adolf Baumbach as a piano study. William Gilmore of the 25th Massachusetts Regimental Band arranged it for brass. Oh, and one more word about Mr. Baumbach. He also wrote a song called Silvery Cascades, and he wrote one called Silvery Waves, another one called Silver Rain, and there was, of course, his Silver Fern Polka and the Silver Lake Waltz. I guess if it worked for him, why change it? Silvery Showers. dance be without a polka? Well, here in Wisconsin, it would be pretty darn dull, that's what we would say. The polka did not gain popularity in the U.S. until about 1850, but it rapidly gained favor with tunes like the Slumber Polka. Forgive you for not getting up and dancing just this once, though. A brass band, it's brassy. It's loud and it's bright, and its music is meant to be exciting and inspiring. And it is now the bandmaster's duty to transform our bold brass band into a delicate thing of light and romance and beauty. Are you ready, Mr. Bandmaster? All righty, then let's have the Elfin Waltz. their daily dose of Stephen Foster. Foster wrote 286 works in less than 20 years, for which he did not receive adequate recognition or just compensation. Today, all of his compositions are in the public domain, the property of every one of us, and for this, we are eternally grateful. Now, we really do not have any idea who the woman in the song is or where she went, but Foster made it so clear that Lulu is gone. Nicely done, uncredited tuba solos there. Thank you, Miss Elsa, Mr. Ray. In 1864, 18 men from the Broadhead Brass Band enlisted in the Union Army and became the 1st Brigade Band, 3rd Division, 15th Army Corps. The tradition of excellence that these men established more than 150 years ago continues today with members of the
Integrated 1st Brigade Band as we march across this great nation. We're going to show you one of the tunes that became significant to the war. It's called Marching Through Georgia. It's a tune that William T. Sherman come to hate with all his heart. Wherever the man went, they played Marching Through Georgia. William T. would show up and they'd say, play Marching Through Georgia. I don't know how many times he must have heard Marching Through Georgia, but I think you get the idea. If he walked into a room, they played
Marching Through Georgia.
Oh, you got to pick up quicker than that. That's okay. Well, I can tell you that it is our signature tune that we march in every parade. We did play it today, and we love it so well. Here is, my friends, the 1st Brigade Band and its signature tune, Marching Through Georgia. Bring the good old bugle, boys, we'll sing another song. Sing it with a spirit that will start the world along. Sing it as we used to sing it 3,000 strong, while we were marching through Georgia. Hurrah, hurrah, we'll bring the jubilee. Hurrah, hurrah, the flag makes us free. So we sang the chorus from Atlanta to the sea, while we were marching through Georgia. Sing the good old bugle, boys, we'll sing another song. Sing it with the spirit that will start the world along. Sing it as we used to sing it 3,000 strong, while we were marching through Georgia. Hurrah, hurrah, we'll bring the jubilee. Hurrah, hurrah, the flag that makes us free. So we sang the chorus from Atlanta to the sea, while we were marching through Georgia. On three, 1, 2, 3, huzzah! Take seats.
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the village where the grapes of wrath are stored. He has loosed the fateful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. In the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea, with a glory in his bosom that transfigures you and me. As he died to make men holy, let us die to make men free. Our God is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is
we're going to be picking up and doing things around here, but I'm sure if some of you wanted to come up and visit some of these interesting looking players and their antique horns, I can guarantee you they'll try to bend your ear off a little bit today. I can also say thank you for staying with us. This shaded area was beautiful to work in. Please stay and listen to the Ballet Folklorico coming up right shortly after we get done. They're wonderful. I've seen them before. We've even shared the stage at the same time sometimes, so that's great. Thank you. The First Brigade Band thanks you. Thank you, Miss Kate, for being our mistress of ceremonies. Thank you, Mr. Wardweek, for being our vocalist on Battle Hymn. Thank you, soloists. Thank you, band, so much. And I think we're done. We're done sweating with the oldies for today. Thanks much. Hope we can come back soon.
Thank you, Darl. Thank you, Jack.